Measles. You walk through a hospital waiting room without engaging with anyone. You just sit down for 10 minutes and then leave. 2 weeks later, you're covered in a rash that looks like someone spilled red paint on you. That's measles, and it doesn't need direct contact. You just sat in the exact spot where a measles patient sat. It's like chickenpox on steroids. Up to 90% of unvaccinated people exposed will become infected. But let's say you survive the fever and rash. Congrats! But it's still not over, because measles doesn't just attack you, it erases your immune system's memory of other diseases you've already beaten. So for the next 2 or 3 years, you're vulnerable to everything, including infections you were protected against before. Even those childhood diseases you survived a decade ago can come back. Measles is almost entirely preventable with a vaccine, but people stopped vaccinating. So unless you want a fatal immune reset, get vaccinated. COPD. You've been smoking for 15 years. Pack a day, sometimes even 2. You don't believe it's done any harm, but you're winded when you walk upstairs, while walking across the parking lot, and now even while sitting still. Every breath has begun to feel like carrying a truck on your back, and panic sets in. You finally muster the courage to see a doctor, but judging by his facial expression after seeing your report, things look bad. And then he says it. You've got COPD. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is a bizarre lung disease where your air sacs are destroyed, your airways are inflamed, and your lungs can no longer exchange oxygen. And to top it all off, there's no undoing it. The damage is permanent. Just so you know, COPD slowly suffocates you, so with each breath, you're running out of time. And unlike COVID-19, there's no vaccine for this disease. You've got to live with damaged lungs until death. And treatment won't save you either. Even if you throw in oxygen tanks, inhalers, and breathing exercises, you'll still spend the rest of your life struggling for air. Still worth that cigarette? The diseases so far have been brutal, but the next ones are truly horrifying. So hit subscribe and let's dive in. Cholera. You're brushing your teeth with water you probably shouldn't trust. You mistakenly take a sip, just one sip. But what's the worst that could happen? Well, hours later, you find out. You can't leave the bathroom. Your body becomes a broken faucet with fluid pouring out faster than you can replace it. You try drinking water, but it doesn't matter. Your intestines aren't absorbing anymore. They're just flushing. Then your lips start to crack and your hands start to cramp very badly. When you pinch the back of your hand, your skin is frozen like clay. Your eyes sink back into your skull, your fingers turn blue. It's almost like you're mutating, minus the cool powers that come with it. You're not sick in the traditional sense, you're leaking. That water you drank contained the cholera bacteria, and this produces toxins that destroy your intestines, thicken your blood, and drain all your organs of water. The cruel irony, you're dying of thirst while surrounded by water that poisoned you. And cholera kills fast, so you've got just 12 hours left from the first cramp. However, it's also almost entirely survivable. Just pump fluids in faster than they're leaving your body. Yet thousands still die from cholera every year. Apparently, even the solution, clean water, is hard to find. Malaria. You're traveling to sub-Saharan Africa for an awesome campout, and prophylactics are taken just before the trip. You're prepared. You're smart about this. Or so it seemed. The night falls, and mosquitoes swarm. Yeah, slap a few off and roll over, but they keep biting. You wake up with a dozen welts and shrug them off. After all, you're on anti-malarials. No need to bother. Weeks later, and back home, you wake up freezing, shaking violently while wrapped in 3 blankets. Then suddenly you're drenched in sweat, throwing blankets off, burning up. Your fever spikes to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, but you think it's just the flu. Then it stops, and you feel fine. But hours later, it hits again. Same violent chills, same fever, same drenching sweats, and the cycle repeats on and on until you go to the doctor and he diagnoses malaria. You see, when mosquitoes bite, you get injected with the malaria parasites. These parasites travel to your liver, multiply quietly for weeks, then explode into your blood before turning your red blood cells into parasite-generating factories. This rupturing is why you feel fine one moment and like you're dying the next. The worst part? Somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa, a child under 5 just died from that same disease. And another, and another. In fact, one child dies from malaria approximately every 60 seconds. Anti-malarials work. Bed nets work too, but the children dying every minute don't have access to either. You got lucky. They didn't. Tuberculosis, TB. You're sitting at your office desk when a cough starts, and before you can catch your breath, another one hits. It quickly becomes a deep, rattling hack that won't stop. Your colleagues glance over concerned, but you wave them off. Then you cough again, and this time something warm hits your hand. Blood. Your vision blurs, and you hit the floor. When you wake up in the ER, the doctor's looking right at you with your test results. You've got tuberculosis. You see, tuberculosis acts like COPD, but it's more mysterious. The bacteria spreads through the air when infected people cough. As for you, you've been walking around contagiously for weeks, maybe months, without knowing it. Your colleagues who glanced over might have it now too, and they won't know until it's too late. The blood you coughed up was just a marker that tuberculosis bacteria has eaten through your lungs. In fact, it's mixed in your blood to a point where recovery is nearly impossible. But let's say you got treatment. That's 6 to 9 months of taking multiple antibiotics every single day without missing a dose. But just so you know, there is also drug-resistant TB. Yeah, tuberculosis bacteria that your antibiotics have no effect on, and they are the real killers. Over 1 million people still die from TB every year. So right now, your only bet to stay alive is a handful of pills and time. Yellow fever. You're at the travel clinic preparing for your trip to South America. The nurse mentions the yellow fever vaccine, but you wave it off. It sounds like a casual cold. Weeks later in the jungle, a mosquito bites you. You slap it away without a second thought, but days later, it hits you. Chills, aches, nausea. Eventually it goes away and you think you beat it. But days later, it comes back worse. You stumble into the bathroom mirror, your eyes are yellow, your skin is yellow. Something's very wrong. Then the bleeding starts. Your gums bleed when you brush your teeth, blood drips from your nose. Even when you cough, it comes up red. You're bleeding internally and you can feel your body shutting down. Your liver is failing. That's why you're turning yellow. This is yellow fever, and if you don't know, 15% of cases reach the toxic phase and die. You've got only a few days left once symptoms start showing. And here's the worst part, there's no cure. In fact, doctors can only keep you alive and hope your body fights it off. If your organs hold out, you survive, and if they don't, you die within days. Meanwhile, the yellow fever vaccine is 99% effective. 1 dose protects against the disease for life, but you refused it. Now you're dying from a completely preventable disease. Bird flu. You work at a poultry farm and the chickens just start dying. It's not the usual kind of sick. They're dropping mid-stride with their wings splayed out and their eyes glazed. Your coworkers say it's normal, but you don't agree. You've worked at this job for years. No gloves and no mask. You never needed them before. So you scoop up the dead birds barehanded, toss them into disposal bins, and move on to the next row. It seems like another random Tuesday, but it isn't. A week later, you wake up drenched in sweat. Fever hits 104 degrees Fahrenheit and your chest feels like an elephant is standing on it. Breathing becomes a big problem, and just when you try to tough it out, you're in the ER. The doctor reads your blood test, H5N1, the avian influenza. He looks terrified. This is a virus humans were never supposed to catch. You see, the avian influenza lives in wild birds and poultry without much fuss, but when it jumps species through handling infected animals, it hits humans like a freight train. Your lungs fill with fluid and your immune system floods your body with so many chemicals that your organs start shutting down instantly. Now, the regular flu kills less than 0.1% of infected people, but avian influenza, it kills over half the confirmed cases. Scientists can't contain it. If this virus mutates, it will be worse than the Black Plague. You handled sick chickens without a second thought, and now doctors won't touch you without a hazmat suit. Nipah virus. A street vendor on an island offers fresh date palm juice, the kind of thing travel bloggers rave about. You down it without thinking. After all, it's just a drink. What could go wrong? But a week later, you wake up with a headache and it feels like your skull is shrinking. Then confusion sets in and you don't even remember what day it is. In fact, you don't even remember how you got to where you are. Meanwhile, inside, your brain is swelling. Fever spikes and you become drowsy, disoriented, and sweaty. You believe the fruit drink was poisoned, but then it hits you, fruit bats. The palm juice was infected with the Nipah virus, which is carried by fruit bats that roamed the island. When the virus entered your body, it went straight for your nervous system and rapidly began destroying all your brain cells. At the hospital, the doctors can only hope you win a fight your body is likely to lose. In fact, 3 out of 4 infected people die from the Nipah virus, and the worst fact, there is no vaccine. From that point on, your death is only a matter of days. One sip of the juice, that's all it took. Rabies. You're on vacation in a country where stray dogs outnumber actual people. Then one dog brushes past you, wagging its tail in a friendly way, and suddenly it sinks its teeth into your legs. Since it barely breaks the skin, you just rinse it under a faucet, slap on a Band-Aid, and forget about it. It's just a scratch. How bad can it be? Now, 2 weeks have passed, but in the 3rd week, you feel a faint tingling where the teeth went in. Then the flu cascade hits. You've got a headache, fever, and a runny nose. Once again, you pop some ibuprofen and push through. But a month passes and nothing works, not even the ibuprofen. Your illness still feels small to you until you try to drink water. Instantly, your throat convulses with a violent spasm that locks your airways shut. You can see the glass of water, but you can't swallow. Don't even Google your symptoms. You won't like what you find. Now, the problem was not the dog bite itself, but it was the dog's saliva. That saliva contained the rabies virus, and it's way more dangerous than you think. You see, rabies crawled up your nerves, and once it got into your brain, the virus damaged it so badly that the sight of water sends your throat into lockdown. But that's not even the worst part yet. In the days that follow, the spasms get fatally serious. Your muscles get super tight, not because you're jacked, but because you've got a crazy virus in your body. You snarl and thrash, just like a dog. In the end, the rabies virus paralyzes you, puts you in a coma, and then causes death. Of the thousands who contracted rabies every year, only a handful have ever survived. Meanwhile, your only defense is a rabies vaccine that should have been given to you days after the bite. You missed that window, and now you're writing your own obituary. These diseases show how fragile life is, but some bizarre disasters were entirely man-made. Check it out in our video on the most terrifying disasters caused by humans.